I've been playing D&D 5e for a while now, and I'd say I DM about 75% of the times I play. Now this all happened in my second year of university. I was part of a game society and had met plenty of great people to play Warhammer and D&D with. In fact, I had spent so much of that year running 2 campaigns for a group of people I met at the society. One D&D 5e campaign, and one Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy campaign. The only problem was that when I was halfway through the second semester, I was feeling a little left out, and so I asked on the Society Facebook if there was any D&D 5e groups that would welcome a new player. A DM, let's call him Josh, said he had recently started a new campaign, so it wouldn't be too much trouble. The group met once a week, and he told me when and where to meet. So the next Sunday, I made my way to Josh's apartment with my character sheet, a Tabaxi Warlock of the Great Old One, my dice bag, and a bag of Doritos. I figured I'd bring the snacks to be friendly. Anyway, I get to Josh's apartment, and the first thing he tells me is to take my shoes off and that I shouldn't be eating Doritos, because the crumbs might cause him to lose his deposit. No, I'm not making that up. I thought it was weird, but figured he might be OCD, so I didn't argue. Then I saw the stack of unclean dishes in the sink, but I shrugged it off and got to join with the other players in the next room. To be honest, the other players were genuinely nice people. Anyway, Josh explains that the other players are on a boat and are traveling to an army camp down the river, and that's where the adventure will begin. My character joins the group by leaping onto the boat away from the goblins, and so for the first week, we travel down the river. For the second week, we travel down the river. For the third week, we travel down the river. On the fourth week, my character asked to see a map. We weren't even a quarter of the way there. Now, if the adventure had been just going down the river, it wouldn't have been so bad if we had been able to land or go ashore. Nope, the water was filled with crocodiles and piranhas anytime we looked at it. Not to mention there was hardly any combat or indeed any challenges at all. Worse still were the 2 NPCs on the boat. These 2 were essentially thinly veiled DMPCs. Something I hate, as the DM gets to control so many characters that I feel like they don't really need a PC. And they were hideously overpowered. And the few times we got into fights, they literally killed 95% of the enemies. One of the 2 also had immense psychic powers. Whenever a player did something that didn't go along with what the DM wanted, such as trying to use any magic out of combat, we would be told, you feel a presence. If the player continued, they were psychically knocked out. This meant the DM could railroad as much as he wanted. So on the second week, we followed his not so subtle directions to go deeper into the boat, and what did we find? An office with a guy offering books for souls and nothing else. No story hook, no side quests. Just, do you want to sell your character off to be slightly better when regarding the knowledge of a dwarf's dietary needs? And so we went. My warlock was then killed in combat by an assassin vine in the third week. A vine I had virtually no chance to detect, or the guy next to me, and apparently I couldn't use any magic to stop it after one attack round, despite Eldritch Blast requiring no components. Oh, and what do you know, even after the party kills it, it's lifted me high enough to kill me on impact when it drops me, because I'm already on death saving throws because the party was busy fighting another set of vines. What made this all worse was the fact that Josh was acting like a jerk throughout all of this. For one, he sat at his own little desk on his computer away from the players. I wouldn't mind this if it was just to keep notes hidden, but no, we literally could see all his notes. He just sat there painting minis. I love painting minis myself, but I would never disrespect my players by doing it in the middle of a game. He also would just sit there and eat an entire mixing bowl of trifle because apparently Doritos crumbs are too messy to clean up and may make you lose your deposit, but a mixture of custard, jelly, and whipped cream is perfectly easy to clean. Josh also couldn't set a scene to save his life, unless it was describing how awesome his NPCs were. In the 2 times we had a fight, he didn't use any maps or tell us distances, so we had to guess if we were in range. And out of combat, it was even worse. Let me give you a taste. You're on a boat. What's around us? Trees. Okay, what can we do on the boat? Eat and play games. Okay, I play chess. Okay, you play chess for 3 hours. Oh, does something happen? No, it's time to sleep. There was a raid, but the NPCs fought it off. I should have left sooner, but I was desperate to be a player, so I stayed longer than I should have. The straw that broke the camel's back was the 4th week. I had just made a replacement character and went down to Josh despite feeling trepidation. When I got there, only one other player had showed up as the others had papers to write, apparently. Now this is where a good DM would either cancel or set up a side quest for the 2 that showed up. Josh, however, did neither. He instead decided to have us advise him on a new campaign he was planning on using on a different system. So before our campaign had even technically started, he was planning to ditch it for a new one. Now, I myself admit getting ideas for a new campaign halfway through another, but I at least wait until my first one is finished or I have enough free time to run it separately before putting it into action. And here is Josh discussing a new game for a different group while sitting eating his mixing bowl of trifle. As you can imagine, I left that session early. The next week, I said I had to focus on studying and had to drop out of the group. While this was partly true, I mainly just wanted out. The other groups I was DMing for were doing fine, so I could get my RPG fix there. Fast forward a month and a half to the summer semester. My Dark Heresy group had finished their game, and I decided to start a second 5e game set in Middle-earth. I posted on the society page again saying I was looking for a few players to join in the game, which would likely only last a few weeks before summer. I got a few takers and explained that I would be limiting the races to match the setting, although some races reskinned, for instance Goliaths, could be used if someone wanted to play a Uruk-hai. One of the players was actually from Josh's campaign. He told me that around about the time I left, the group fell apart. I was not in the least surprised. Then Josh asked to join. I don't know why I let him join. Maybe I thought he deserved a second chance. Maybe I thought he couldn't be nearly as bad as playing as he was DMing. Boy, was I wrong. Off the bat, he demanded a custom class. One of the things I had made very clear to the group before the session was one was not allowed to have homebrew or any non-official classes, as I have been messed over several times in the past, early in my DM career, by people using the super OP homebrew classes. To be fair, I should have just checked them, but I was new to his. The only one I allow is Matt Mercer's Gunslinger, if the setting allows it. He whined and moaned about how he wanted to be a sheriff. Ultimately, I let him have a background as a sheriff instead. Thing is, when this character died in the first session, I'll get to that in a moment, he then demanded another homebrew class to play, an alchemist. This time, I put my foot down properly and said no. I didn't want to risk another OP homebrew. He pouted and whined like a child, but ultimately agreed. Yet, for the rest of the session, he kept going on about how awesome the homebrew was and how at 3rd level, he, as an alchemist, could essentially make healing potions more potent than a cleric spell at the same level, and make bombs that did 16d6 splash damage. Because yeah, that's how you convince me that homebrews from the internet aren't OP at all. Not only that, but he was just as obnoxious both in and out of character. In character, he would pick fights with the rest of the party. He would always hang back from a fight and do literally nothing. He literally spent a fight chucking pebbles at a troll instead of using his daggers or bow, until the last moment when he would rush in and steal the kill. In the first session, this got him killed, as he was the first one. A sneaky wight saw it as it crept up on the party, while its friend kept the rest busy. Yet he didn't learn, and continued his behavior. He also complained that his sheriff had virtually no way to bring people instantly to heal, despite being a 3-foot halfling trying to bring in a 6-foot thug in a town the halfling has no legal power in. I had explained this to him beforehand. Out of character, Josh simply couldn't speak quieter than a yell. We, like many game society groups, used a university building, so I had to constantly tell him to keep it down so we didn't disturb other groups or people studying, but he only seemed to listen for 5 minutes before his megamouth was at it again. He constantly interrupted other players, and when it wasn't his turn in combat, Josh would just go on YouTube and play an annoying video without headphones. He constantly argued every rule and bit of lore and couldn't fathom that he wasn't the DM, and thus he wasn't in charge. Side note, I later looked up the lore facts he had argued, and most of them were false. I was honestly sick of him. It was the last 2 weeks before the end of uni, so I ended the campaign with a final session with a quest to stop a troll and reclaim his treasure. After that, the group disbanded, except the guy who had been in Josh's other party. He bolted the moment Josh joined, which should have been an indicator to me, but hey, hindsight is 20/20. Next year, I'll be entering my 3rd year at uni, and I think it's safe to say no matter how desperate for players I may be, I won't be inviting Josh back. I'm really confused with Josh's behavior. It sounded like there was this story that was about to happen, but nothing really happened. It was a weird power fantasy where he wanted to control the main characters, which is entirely selfish as a DM, since you control enough as it is. And then the fact that he had built-in railroading capabilities was kinda evilly genius. He didn't know how to paint the environment, and he focused on only one thing. This definitely shows when switching to being a player, complaining about not being broken, and constantly arguing to show that he wants to be in control. I just don't think there's much hope for him. But what do you think?